which the city was in, the first week I had to recommend to just shut it down. I didn't have a budget director, finance director, those things. And I believe that if I worked hard enough and put in enough hours, with my sleeves rolled up with my team, that I could make things right. Without really taking the time to develop relationships and understanding that community much better. And understanding the environment, especially the political environment, where I had to negotiate with all of the unions at one time. Even when I thought about in New Jersey, if you even think about cutting back, if we had to cut back, you didn't need to confer with the unions. And that was a hurdle because police and fire had given back the year before and had been betrayed. So I had to build those relationships back up, and it was difficult. I did, but it was a lot of resentment about it. Also being patient with the mayor and other elected officials. I wanted change, and I wanted it now, and I wanted to make it. And actually, they didn't want to.
Thank you.
What are ways in which you have flexed or adjusted your work to accommodate a project that was at a tight timeline to move to success? If you have any examples, that'd be great.
Could you repeat that again?
Like, how have you flexed or adjusted, work priorities or your schedule to accommodate a particular project that's at a tight timeline that you had to focus on? And can you give some recent examples of how that has worked or not worked for you?
Most pressing times have been budget and preparation of budget. So very strict timelines. I don't care what state you're in, what nation, always timelines. And there are always things that are dynamic within the city that pull at your time. And what I have generally done, realizing my dilemma in Atlantic City, is developing people around me, teams around me that I can depend on and trust to get the job done, and trust that they can get the job, those other things that come up, done, where I must focus on the main priority, which is the budget. And in most circumstances, in the cities that I've managed in, the budget, especially during budget season, is the main priority. And I must focus on it. And so things come up, issues with police department, issues with emergency management, things come up. You can be guaranteed that things are going to come up. They're going to pull the manager this way and that. And one of my keys is to build a team around you that can handle it, and give them, empower them to do that. I told the directors the other day, I'm a person that allows you to take risks. Take risks, because at stake is the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of this city. So take a risk, but let me know. Communicate with me. And the last analysis, I'm going to say, I trust you. Take a risk on it, but we're both taking a risk. My job is on the line first, yours is second. But the most important thing is the citizens of the city welfare is at stake, and we need to. I need to get this budget done. I need you to go and do the other things.
Thanks.
Dr. Penn, we're at 30 minutes, so just give you
Thank you,
gatekeeper. Commissioner Moore?
Yes, thank you. And this is like a four-part question, Dr. Penn, and I'm happy to repeat it if necessary.
Sure.
In light of the recently released profile and study from public safety, how would you go about engaging the public or moving this issue forward to resolution?
Thank you very much. Commissioner Moore. That has been in San Diego. That's what I was called to San Diego to. There was a gentleman that was, before I got there, in San Diego, a gentleman that was stopped, was asked by a police officer to show his license, refused to show the license with other Hispanic youth in the car. It was an African-American gentleman. He refused to show his driver's license. A fight ensued. Officer was on top of him. He shot the officer, took the officer's revolver, shot him. Went to his partner, shot him. Went to the ride-along and shot her. Took the cruiser that the officers were in and rode and drove over one of the police officers. The net result was that one police officer was dead, the other police officer was paralyzed for life on the right-hand side. The ride-along got away with a wounding. It divided the community, black, white, Hispanic, right down the middle. And there was no reasonable cause for the stop. And it was probably one of the most sentinel, this was before Rodney King, sentinel cases of racial profiling. I was brought in to take over the San Diego Police Department and work with and deal with the racial profiling issue, police community relations, and how we're going to deal with police misconduct. And we went on to establish a police community relations advisory board, which I directed, made up of citizens who worked with the police department, worked with the city manager's office to review policies and procedures that inhibited good community relations, police community relations in San Diego. And we went from looking at the police academy, how we recruited people, who do we recruit, why we recruit, to what they were being trained to do. Then, for that was the policy part of it. And then by the recommendation from that Police Community Relations Advisory Board, that they set up a police review board, a citizens police review board, to look at individual cases of police misconduct. That was highly controversial. And it was so controversial it had to go to a vote of the people. And the vote of the people said, yes, we want an individual police board. So I directed two of those police community relations, police review boards at the same time, simultaneously. But it was citizen input that made the change. And what we had to do was we had to coordinate individual community meetings. What do you want in your police department? At least 35 different ones. What do you want in your police department? I was privileged to go around to different locations in the country, different police chiefs. What are your use of force? What is your use of force policy? What's your values? We need to get our own in place. And at the end of the day, there were at least 150 recommendations coming from the Police Advisory Board, and one of those was the Police Review Board. We established that. But out of the 150, the City Council accepted at least 130 of those recommendations. You do it by one, hard work. You have to have thick-skinned folks, and you need to develop, at least I had to develop, a good working trusting relationship with the police department. I'm sorry. That's it.
Keep in mind that there are three more parts to this question, so be succinct. What are the three most important things you would have done regards to this information? Also, tell us about your experience engaging the public on routine and significant policy issues. And then lastly, what is your philosophy related to public engagement?
Let me start from the last one, I hope that you can remind me of the other two. My philosophy in regarding community engagement is this. I believe that those who govern us cannot do so without the consent of those being governed. That's been my guiding. I found that police chiefs, especially good police chiefs, know that they cannot do their job without those people in the community consenting to them policing them. It can't be done. So mine is that we empower the neighborhood and people to help us make decisions. We must get their trust, and we continue to get their trust by allowing them and empowering them to get, shining a light on their power, that they have the power. That we want and need their engagement. That's my philosophy. 3 things that I did and would do is that open it up. I was impressed when I read about the response from the chief of police. Yes, we did it. We did the study, and I was impressed with the fact that the city did do the study. I mean, that's major. That is major. Did the study and took the results and said, okay, we're going to do something. One of the things I take challenge with, though, is that somebody said, well, that's happened. It's history. We need to move on, and I hope that the community is patient. The community is not patient, and it's been said, justice delayed is justice denied. We need to move forward rapidly and engage and demonstrate, and by action, that we're looking at every aspect of our police organization, and we're doing it openly. And we're allowing that participation, we're allowing people to look in it. And we have nothing to hide, we're transparent. So those are the things that we did in San Diego, being transparent, allowing citizen participation, and the third one is being serious about it and acting quickly. Was it one that I missed, Commissioner Moore?
Tell us about your experience in engaging the public. You might have done that a little bit already when you talked about the work. But the question is, tell us about your experience in engaging the public on routine and significant policy issues.
Well, that was one was a major one, engaging community and dealing with the differences in each community. For instance, when we had the forums in Southeast San Diego, there was a different environment, different neighborhood, different feeling. I'm sorry.
Commissioner, I think we got the question answered. Dr. Finn, we're on number 7.
Okay, I think too, Mayor.
Okay, we're on number 7. We have
All right.
15 questions. So I really need you to be specific and try to truncate your answers, or we're not going to make it down to the question.
Gotcha.
Vice Chair Finn.
Okay. How do you do financial analysis? And what are the steps you take when you prepare a budget related to the engagement of staff and administrative leaders, policymakers, and the community?
Well,
and then, more generally after that, what are the concerns, challenges, and insights that you have gained in your work when doing this budget work with those stakeholders?
The first thing is the continuous engagement of commissioners and getting what their priorities for the upcoming budget year is, getting that input. Also engaging the community in the process. I believe that sometimes process can be, in government, could be just as important as product. Okay? So engaging the community is that, because there may be something coming on down the line that you may have to say no to, or cut, or do something, and you need to have that consent. So at least I was involved in it, and they involved in it. The involvement of those stakeholders, the involvement of staff in terms of, okay, here's our analysis, and here's the way I want you to do your analysis, and here's our target. In general, here's our target. After discussions with department directors and even other teams. Here's our target, here's our situation, here's our revenue projections. Here are our challenges. Here's what we must do. Here are our legal obligations. We must, okay, what kind of window do we have? That's the way I want you to keep it in mind. But here's our target, here's what we want to achieve. Here's what our commissioners are saying, here's what our community is saying. Go to work.
Please.
Dr. Penn, in the light of the budget challenges we're facing, what kind of innovative ideas do you have or have you used in your present role or previous roles to deal with these types of financial challenges?
Again, I think the process sometimes is more important than product is sometimes. Is that the answers are not with me alone. The answers are with commissioners, answers are with community, answers with staff. And you allow that creativity to come out. And when you allow that creativity to come out and that risk-taking to come out, they know. People in charge of the budget and finances, they have the professional organizations. They know what's going on in other cities. They know what innovations are going on in other cities. They may be part of that. So let's bring that forward, all right? Those people involved in economic development in our city. They know what's going on. They know, I know what's going on in ICMA and what other cities are doing. Let's put our heads together. Let's see what will fit, because something that's happening over here may not happen, may not be the right pill for Kalamazoo. We need to tinker with it and be innovative about it. So open up your minds for innovation. Things that we've done in the past, for instance, in Carson, where I was assistant city manager, dealing with the budget, was let's change from a 40-hour week, 8-hour day to a 10-hour day, 40 hours a week, and have Friday dark in the city, saving money. Not laying off people, but it saves money. Okay? One of the things that didn't come from me. That came from what was going on in the industry and other cities doing that. We said, well, we can do that. And it may not be innovative when you look at it, but it becomes innovative when you convince other people in the organization that's the right thing to do and move forward with it. So those are kind of examples. But mainly the innovation comes from my team, and my involvement in this team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hopel. Dr. Penn, I have a four-part question. I'm going to read each question first. In the interest of time, just ask you to answer them one by one if you can. Please describe the Michigan model for local government financing.
I'm not familiar with the Michigan model for local government financing. I will find out what that is.
I guess the second question would be a predicate of the first. What, if anything, would you do to change the existing structure? Do you have a different answer for that question?
No. If I don't know the structure, I'm not going to answer on that one.
Mm-hmm. And what do you have any ideas of your own about enhancing city revenue and jobs?
Well, economic development has been the engine for getting additional revenue. In California, tax increment dollars was an instrument that we used to get enhanced local revenue, attracting business. In the abstract, it is making and keeping Kalamazoo an attractive place to bring in business and revenue and diverse revenue and maintaining businesses here in Kalamazoo. And the secret is one of the not secret, but one of the tools is building and enhancing small businesses, disposition and development agreements with developers that we're not taking for a ride for giving up a lot of our incentives for them, and then taking for a ride for 3 or 4 years, and they're gone. So we must be real diligent about how we sculpt those kinds of economic development tools. That on the one hand, we're offensive, we're out there trying to get and bring people in and maintain them. On the other hand, we're defensive by saying, listen, we're not, you're not doing us a favor by coming here. We've got something to give, and we want to maintain a long-term relationship with you.
Thank you. And finally, how could the city become more locally self-sufficient based on your experience in other cities?
Locally self-sufficient, I'd like to take a little issue with that because we're not an island. And we depend on other townships, we depend on the county, other agencies. And gone are those days where you are self-sufficient. We depend on, in some instances, federal help. We depend, in some instances, on state help. We depend, in some instances, on our local philanthropic community, a lot to a certain extent. So, saying we want to be independent, to me, is counter to my thinking that we want that connectivity. We want to build relationships with the county. And I talked with the county executive district and the Portage city manager. And we need to have connectedness. We depend on each other. We can't do it alone.
Thank you, Dr.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Miller?
I only have a one-part question.
Oh!
Tell us your most difficult personnel problem and how you dealt with it.
Most difficult personnel problem had to deal with, does have to deal with police. Because it's so public and it's so inflammatory and can ignite into something that you don't want to ignite into. And it divides people. It divides neighborhoods. So several of them, I can't say one, but several of them. One in particular was that there were several complaints, particularly in Southern California, we have an immigrant challenge in Southern California, and we were monitoring complaints of the PD. And we kept getting these weird complaints from people who were immigrants. And it's hard for them to complain because they're illegal. Well, finally we said something's weird here. They were complaining about people being stopped, their money being taken, then let go and turned over to immigration. And we did investigation, found out there were 2 police officers who were doing that, robbing, taking their money, and we had to deal with it. And it divided the community. It was public. And it divided the community because people were saying they're illegal. So what's the great deal? But my thing is, again, I don't care who it is, a visitor or anybody else, they have the same rights as anyone else. They're human beings. And so we had, that's difficult. Because then the morale of the police department and those can come into play, and our community was very supportive. The police department comes into play. What are you doing with our police department? And as a city manager, you must balance activities. So it's difficult.
Thank you.
Doctor, how have you in your work engaged young people to move an opportunity? How do you view young people in relationship to city success, and what have been intentional actions you have taken?
As I discussed previously, I was the Assistant Director of the Citizens Committee on Youth and Comprehensive Youth Serving Agency for the City of Cincinnati, which advocated for youth, advocated for family, advocated for education, went out, got grants, proposals, made proposals, had innovative programs, both for youth, family, and for child care development. And we had 7 or 8 different youth service bureaus. When I was in San Jose as director, we had built homework centers, teen centers, and had a youth advisory board. We also had in Cincinnati, which I had to staff and get them engaged on a daily basis. Currently, as executive director of Nuevo South, which is right now in the stage of concentrating on youth and the use of technology for education among youth, and particularly Hispanic youth, of developing leadership programs for them, enhancing their career paths, empowering them to get involved in the city of LA, and community activism within that community. I'm also the interim executive director of 501c3 for my church, which is called the Bridges Community Economic Development Corporation. And under that is our Academic Center of Excellence, where we take young people and we enhance with tutoring in the course of the week, after school for about 30 to 40 youngsters. We have a summer algebra institute, which is algebra is the building block for getting into college and going into college. And these are inner city young people. Summer Institute, which is an 8-week program to intensively deal with math and algebra and science. We have a high success rate in that, and college preparation, SAT preparation, leadership building, taking them throughout the course of the year to the various universities and tying them into there. We have what we call a posse program where we engage. We recommend scholarships to the posse program, people familiar with posse. We just became an agency that can recommend to the posse program, and it's a highly successful program, getting people through and getting full tuition free to their 30 or 40 universities throughout the country. Posse program. It's highly successful. That was a big pound in the back of the mind to get that. So I'm very engaged with young people. I teach at the community college level, and always engaging them.
Mr. Harris.
Mayor? So this question is about intergovernmental cooperation and public-private partnerships also. So it's just, have you been involved in activities that are intergovernmental cooperation and public-private, and how has that worked for you? How have you decided this is a good time to do that?
It's always a good time to do that, because again, we can't do it alone. Intergovernmental relations. In San Diego, for the city manager, I was the regional urban information systems manager for it was a system, geographic information system between the county and the city, and I was the manager of it, coordinating between the county and the city, building the biggest geographic information system for San Diego County in the country at the time. A huge system, a lot of effort, a lot of coordination between mapping and engineering, coming with similar symbologies, and maps, and now we presently have geographic information system. Thank goodness for me, because that's difficult. I was the ARGIS manager, which is Area Justice Information System manager, coordinating throughout the county for different sheriffs and chiefs of police throughout San Diego County to combine and get information on the justice system and coordination. I am a stickler for intergovernmental government relations. My PhD is in political science, concentration in public administration, but governmental relations and getting to know different types of government structure and relationships is powerful. I also volunteer for the Red Cross, where I am a government liaison specialist. I was deployed for 30 days during Katrina to coordinate the state of Louisiana with government, with departments there during Katrina. Then deployed 3 years later for Gustav, when the hurricane hit Louisiana again. There at the state level, coordinating with the governor and on the intergovernmental relations. And just recently, Rita hit Northeast with 5 different states, different kinds of government operating. Had to get in there on an emergency basis and learn those systems and get services to people out there.
Mr. Coombs.
Penn, the city has a poverty rate of over 40% for its children, over 60% for its African-American children. What ideas do you have for combating poverty among our families?
I came from poor background. I came from housing projects in New Jersey, so I personally understand the challenges of poverty. 8 kids in the projects. Cities typically don't have social service responsibilities, typically with the county. But again, people in our city need those services. That's the bottom line. We need those services. So what do we do about it? We work with the county. How can we leverage some of the funds that we have to work with the county to deal with poverty? We advocate. We use the power of our advocacy to advocate at the state level, to advocate at the national level. We use our lobbyists, me, mayor, you. This is an issue for our city. And we use whatever power we have as a city to impact that. That means if we need to go out write proposals in conjunction with private sector, if we need to write proposals in partnership with some other agencies, if we need to go back to our philanthropic community, knowing that they're giving, but we need to give more, we need to do that. Whatever we can do to shorten the gap, to make that difference.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moore?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I lost my place there. So I have a pretty
You want me to ask it?
No, I got it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. What number is it, Mayor?
14.
I'm sorry. So climate change, I apologize. Climate change is a reality and it has serious implications for our city. What ideas do you have about reducing the city's carbon dioxide emissions?
Well, climate change is a regional issue. Although it impacts the city, it is a regional issue. We can do all we can in the city of Kalamazoo, but again, we have to build our partnership and relationship with our region. What are we going to do? And that's where building relationships with the county, townships, and in Kalamazoo. What are we going to do about it? So I would suggest a regional, not an authority, but starting off with a regional group as representative of the region, and begin to start working on it, and have an action plan, and have a commitment from them, from those various jurisdictions on where we're going to go for the future.
And Doctor, the last question is, tell us about why you're still interested, or why you're interested in this position. It's your final wrap up here. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
Sure. When we were in the middle of the process, I received from Voorhees a statement that said the commissioners wanted to know what is my commitment to implementing the human rights ordinance. That confirmed for me the fit. Because I said to myself, and then I said, that's my life. And in the ordinance, I read the ordinance, it's exactly what I've lived my life for. The promise that Martin Luther King said, it's a promise. Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, among those rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. You have that in your ordinance. That says a lot to me. And I said, that's what I want to be a part of. That's what I want to do, my duty, to implement, along with the other ordinances within city of Kalamazoo. And that's the kind of family and community that we want to be a part of.
Doctor, thank you, but I do have one question that I asked the other candidates, except for one.
That's 16.
Yeah.
Did I make my time?
You made it, you're over by 2 minutes, so I figured you could give me
Okay.
2 minutes.
Oh, shit, yes, sir.
You had the opportunity to explore the city today and
Yes.
go wherever. Could you just tell us where you went, why you went there, what you learned? You got 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was yesterday and the day before. We came in earlier on Wednesday and did a tour. And we went around the city and we went to various places. We went downtown because we were interested in property and staying downtown. We were interested in staying by some water, if there's some water. But it took us there. Then on the tour, formal tour of the city on Wednesday.
I'm talking more about what you did today on your own.
On my own?
Yeah, your own.
Well, we had done that stuff at home. We didn't do a tour. I was just preparing for this. But in the previous, we went to Northside, we went to Portage, we went past the health clinic, we went past the churches. They gave us a real tour of Kalamazoo that we had done a tour before that. And which was sort of a bland tour, but we wanted to see the real Kalamazoo, the challenges in the north side. We want to see the north side. We want to see downtown, what's going on downtown. We want to see the outskirts, what's going on there. We want to see the schools, we want to see all those things. I believe that tour was as open as it could be. And we passed by, we went to the church on Wednesday evening. That's what we do. We need to go to church. And we went to church, local church, and get a real flavor of Kalamazoo. I want to close by saying this, that since we've been here, it's been such a welcoming atmosphere, a spirit of community here. I can't think of anyone, if you can, Twitter, that said anything negative about Kalamazoo, except that we have a great city, and we try.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate you and your interest in this position. We'll continue to go about our work. Thank you so much. and
Thank you so much for
listeners
inviting us.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore.
Thanks, Dr. Penn.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. And please call me George, please. Thank you.
Oh, Dr. George, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're my friend.
Dr. Brady.
Welcome to Kalamazoo, Mr. Richards.
Not here yet.
Not here yet, but
Tuesday? Okay, Tuesday, yep.
Good, how are you? Gonna wait with us, just keep that going. Were you? Very much. Did you eat your coffee?
Oh, yeah, I got the. Hello.
How you doing?
Commissioner Cooney, nice
Good
to
to see you again.
See you again. Scott, good to see you. Yeah. Nice to meet you. How much time you Let's start all over. Good to know that. Sir.
Oh, yeah, very good. We need a little bigger exact. I tell you, all big stuff you guys.
Hey, I'm sitting right in between these two guys. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, right.
When you go home. You're so nice.
put some support with you, huh?
Yeah.
That's great.
Reinforcements.
Great.
Good to meet you. I saw you last night from the back. I was sitting in the back. Well, we can.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Okay, good. Okay.
You know, this isn't a cheering section. You can't start saying Rob. We will be
Hopefully I won't get banned.
Why did he say that?
Bobby, where's your tie at?
He's loosening up.
So is it video?
No, that's what I put him out
Video,
for.
say video.
He's lightening up.
Oh, okay.
Stephanie.
Okay. Gotcha. Because she asked about the
I didn't wear one.
time. Okay.
Luckily, these are ones on me, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Already started.
That's great. That's great.
You'll make it, David? Oh, if he's
Sorry.
doing that, he's going to. So are you gonna make it?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, don't touch
Unclean.
it.
He's unclean.
Don't touch him.
Thank you.
I saw him cough on your chair down.
Oh, baby.
No, don't. Was drinking out of his cup.
Yeah. Yeah, just a little innocent prank.
Well, you were playing behind me.
Yeah.
Oh, is there a delay on it?
Oh,
Uh-oh.
are you watching yourself? Oh, God.
How'd your baseball team do over there this year in Battle Creek?
We didn't make the playoffs.
No?
No.
Bad.
Yeah. Now Kalamazoo will have one next year, right?
Yeah, it's a
So-
different league. It's college ball.
Yeah, okay.
That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Okay.
And I need to say hello to Commissioner Moore
Yep,
via
she's
phone, video.
Hello and good
Hi.
evening.
Good evening. Jim Ritz.
Welcome to Kalamazoo.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, Mr. Assistant Manager, thank you for being here today, and it continues our 5-year journey. I mean, well we go where no one has.
Right.
But we appreciate your interest in our city and this opportunity. And we have about 15 questions for you.
Okay.
Many of them are multiple questions within one.
Okay.
So we'll do our best to repeat and survey write down. It's not an issue. We've got about an hour.
Sure.
Keep it to that
Yeah.
if possible, so I can ask you specific
No problem.
answers to questions. We'll be doing round robin questioning, and
Okay.
Commissioner Moore, as you know, is watching web stream from Miami due to a family emergency, and she's also will be answering questions today as well. And so the first question is mine, and we'll start moving. We have your background materials in front of us. I would like to you to please begin by briefly reviewing your professional career path and career goals. In your summary, please elaborate on the circumstances and reasons for leaving old positions and accepting new ones. I'm going to add the additional piece of that. Why is the City of Kalamazoo City Manager position of interest to you at this point in your career? What qualities or challenges specifically attract you to Kalamazoo?
Okay.
So,
Well, I can be brief on the earlier part of my career. We moved to Columbus, Ohio I went to graduate school at Ohio State. I mentioned last night I'm a Buckeye, so I don't know if that'll be held against me here, but after that, graduating there, I went to work for the city of Columbus. The city auditor was my instructor or professor at Ohio State, so worked for him. He hired me, worked my way up in his office to executive assistant, and that's really where I kind of got the basis of my finance background, accounting. Although I'm not an accountant by trade, but I have a good depth of accounting and finance. And then from there, we have family. I grew up in Michigan, Grand Rapids, and wanted to move closer to home, had children. And in fact, my family is here tonight, and my wife, Sheila, I introduced last night. My daughter, Olivia, is 16, and my son, Adam, is 13. Size 14 shoes, so he'll fit well on a basketball team here in Kalamazoo. So they're really the folks that manage me, so I needed to get that in there. So back to my career path. So I worked for the city of Marshall for 3 years, actually for Maurice Evans, who is now the city manager in Portage, and that was kind of a start for me in Michigan as the finance clerk treasurer, so that I got a good understanding of municipal finance in Michigan. And then the Battle Creek position opened, and I moved into that position in 2001 as finance director, and been there ever since, and worked my way up to assistant city manager in 2008, and that's where I currently am. So I think if you look at my career path, I have longevity in positions. I like to typically stay in a position where where I can grow and help the community or the organization that I'm working for. So I think really that's what attracts me to Kalamazoo. I've looked at the city managers here, and there have been a longevity in city managers, and that really attracts me. My family and I like to locate in a community, be a part of the community, and help grow that community. So I think that's what really excites me. Kalamazoo has a lot going on for it, and I think I'm at that point in my career where I'm ready to take on that next challenge and be your city manager.
Thank you. You guys should be doing homework for this one.
Come on.
Oh, that's right.
Friday.
This is homework. They're getting credit for this.
Mr. Ritzema, if we hire you as our next city manager, what are your first top 3 priorities?
Well, I think, looking at, I've had an opportunity to review in depth a lot of what's going on in Battle Creek, in Kalamazoo, and I really, sense, a lot that's been done and accomplished in the sense of the budget, and filling some gaps in that, and obviously there's more to be done, and that's going to be a big priority. But really coming in, I need to observe or assess the lay of the land, so to speak. And so, working with staff on really, figuring out where we go first in dealing with the $3.5 million problem from next year. And then beyond that, some of those longer term liabilities that exist. And so, that to me would be first and foremost. Working in the organization, I'm familiar with the core community in Battle Creek, so I know what it means to have 500 employees, 600 plus here, to deal with, and all the dynamics that go along in a complex city. So really getting the lay of the land. But what I've sensed in my time this past couple of days is with the early retirement initiative, there is some angst amongst the employees, a lot of more being required of the ones that are left, and really needing to look at the organization and somehow gain trust and let them know that we are going to work on a plan to gain sustainability and address some of those issues, so people can feel confident in what they're doing and working and feel supported by administration. So that would be getting to know the organization and all of that, and then you know, getting out into the community, there's a lot of community issues, I understand. We've got a DDA issue, finance issue. I'm familiar with DDAs in depth, manage the Battle Creek Downtown Development Authority. So, you know, being able to maybe work some of my knowledge into that situation, and then supporting economic development. And then a lot of came up last night, you know, a lot of the social issues, and I really, you know, sense that, you know, folks look to the city to address some of those issues. And even though directly we can't impact that, you know, I think the city should be a partner at a lot of those tables that are dealing with those issues. So I would certainly want to plug in there and have that visibility.
Thank you.
Mr. Assistant Manager, could you demonstrate 3 ways that you have led innovation and how you have enabled innovative ideas and what those ideas were? Notice I said led.
Led, yes. Okay, this is very recent, and this is in our wastewater treatment process. We have a similar process in Battle Creek as Kalamazoo, and a fairly old system. We have biosolids that we land apply and incinerate in the fall or in the winter. I understand you landfill. We're working with a company in Springfield, which is right near Battle Creek, in taking those biosolids and dewatering them and converting them into an energy pellet. And ultimately, we'd like to go to pyrolysis, which will generate electricity or syngas, and then an activated carbon, which is a very marketable commodity, and actually generate a revenue stream back to the wastewater fund to help support capital infrastructure. So I was key in getting that approved by the commission back in July, and now, you know, the project has begun, and I've actually been working in implementing that as well. So.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Yes. Tell us 3 failures in your most recent position or previous positions that you've held. What were they? How did you deal with the issue? How did you learn? And how did it help you move differently? And I wasn't the one who came up with 3. I only wanted 1. But
Okay.
I said 3. One's fine.
Okay. I can address this. This is goes back 4 years ago. We were financially challenged at the time, actually several years of financial challenge. We actually looked at furloughs, and we brought that to the city commission. They approved it. Well, at the time we had 10 bargaining units, and we had to work those furloughs into a memorandum of understanding with those bargaining units. Well, we had one unit that did not take that, and led to picketing and blowing of horns and, you know, circling City Hall. That was a mess. And you know, while we didn't appreciate what they were doing, we realized that, you know, we could have taken a little different tactic in laying that out. And I think the lesson learned there, and this came all the way up to the commission, is we don't want to look at furloughs again because they are painful.
Thank you.
So this is talking about, excuse me, your own schedule and how you flex things. How do you adjust your work to accommodate, you know, the demands that you might have, and particular projects and timelines, and how has that worked for you or not worked, I guess?
Yeah, and there are a lot of demands of the job, and as I mentioned, you know, you're pulled and pushed in a lot of directions, both internally in the organization. People want to see you out in the organization, and but also out in the community. So time is a commodity, and it's difficult at times to manage that and protect that. But you know, to the extent I need to be at a particular place at a particular time, you know, I have an electronic calendaring system. I have a secretary that helps me manage that, and I just spoke with Gina. The same is done here. So you know, that helps a lot. And then, you know, things come up, so, you know, things can be moved around and stuff, but it's really learning to prioritize what's important, you know, what can be rescheduled or what does have to happen at that particular time. So I've become adept at that.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes, in light of the recently released except from public safety, how would you go about engaging the public or moving this issue forward to resolution? And then there's 3 more parts to this question.
And that's the racial profile.
Racial
study.
profile study, yes. I've read the study, and I've paid particular attention to the recommendations. I think those are certainly areas that I would support Chief Hadley and police administration in fulfilling and carrying that out. And I think some of that will get us to a point of getting through this issue. And then I've had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Warfield and Maddie Jordan Woods, and understood from their perspective what that means. And I think a lot of it is engaging the community and getting some trust back that we are going to get through this. And I would support all those efforts to regain that trust.
What are the 3 most important things you would have done regards to this information? And then tell us about your experience in engaging the public on routine and significant policy issues.
So the 3 things that I would have done, now you're assuming then that I got the policy and what I would have done retrospectively. So I think I admire what was done, that the actual study was performed by the chief and city manager proactively versus reactively. I know there were some concerns at the time that they wanted to, that raised the question. So I think, I support that effort to actually try to get out in front of this. And these are tough issues because we've got issues in our police department in Battle Creek. So, those are complex organizations that have a lot of depth to them, a lot of stuff that, we've got to, move past that. And I think, just being up front and where things are at. And I certainly, applaud what was done. Back to the policy, where I've actually engaged in policy, there's a lot of opportunities for engaging public, and I've really thought about this over the last few days as I've been asked that question many times. And I think the way we engage the public right now, it doesn't work. People last night, reception, there weren't a lot of people there. People are busy. So I say how we did it in the past, but I think we need to look at different ways of getting out to people. We have an initiative in Battle Creek, Harwood, that I've been a part of the team that really is engaging the community through conversations and in a positive way to create a narrative for our community and really work through issues in a positive way, aspirations and what do you want, not prescribing things to the public. So, I would support something like that too, just looking at the way of doing government different.
You might have just summed this up a little bit already, but the final question is, what's your philosophy related to public engagement?
Well, I think as we work through tough issues, we've got to engage the public. There's a lot of areas where we think we may have the answers, but how it impacts different groups, that needs to be known, because certainly we don't want to do something that has a negative consequence somewhere else and we miss that opportunity. So again, I would look, and that's where I think a lot of the diverse perspectives come into place that you can engage in as we roll out public policy. So, I think that's certainly an area where we can get that improvement.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up to that.
Sure.
In light of your statement of your philosophy, and in light of your statement about Harwood, I'm going to ask you what specifically have you been involved in regarding the Harwood effort, and have you been at the table?
Yes.
How have you engaged? How have you led engagement?
The city manager and I are part of the core team that's really designing that for Battle Creek. We were announced last March that we're the Beacon community, and it's kind of through a grant through the foundation, Kellogg Foundation. So there's a core team of major players in Battle Creek to kind of structure this thing and roll it out. So I've been a part of that team. I haven't been able to attend any of the community conversations just because of schedule, but supporting that, and then now we're actually identifying an issue that we're going to tackle and start working through that process. So I've been a part of that all the way through.
What's that issue and how did you deal?
It's through the core team, again, through those community conversations, gathering the input, which had a good representation of the community. It's tackling youth leadership and developing that. And it's quite a topic, but I think a very important one.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you. How do you do financial analysis? And in particular, what are the steps that you take when preparing a budget related to the engagement of staff and administrative leaders, policymakers in the community?
Okay. Obviously, had much experience developing budgets over the years, and difficult budgets. So, you got to look at the situation you're in. There might be a time where things aren't looking too bad, and you have a smooth budget year. Where it gets a little more difficult, definitely involved staff, and we've tried various ways of getting at the expenditure side, prioritizing services, what's actually required by law, by charter, what's not, and then look at that side of the ledger of, are there ways of doing that differently? All those ways, and that's where you got to engage your departments. They know their work, and then bringing that together through the administrative team and actually presenting the budget to the commission. And we work before, prepping the commission with background information and all of that before you go to, we do workshops, and we could hold multiple workshops. We usually do it off-site, more informal, and public workshops, and then work towards a balanced budget.
What are the concerns, challenges, and insights you've gained in your work when doing this kind of budget work with stakeholders?
There is a tendency, and this is, I think, human nature to just look at the here and now and not pay attention to the future. We implemented financial planning, long-term financial planning in the mid-2000s. I was responsible for that, and we look out 5 years, and I understand that it was done here, started in 2007. That's a great tool for showing impacts in the future of decisions made now, and fully support that. And then just creating that narrative of what's going on, and the biggest challenges are those long-term liabilities that we all will need to deal with.
Thank you.
Mr. Clean?
Okay. In the light of the budget challenges we're facing, what kind of innovative ideas do you have or have you used in your present role or previous roles to deal with these types of financial challenges?
Okay, I mentioned the furloughs. That's not a creative idea. Yeah, strike that one. And we looked to the state, and it seemed like it was going so well for them, but apparently we didn't look at that too closely. But I think, again, what I like to do in budgeting is budget for the long term. Don't look at one-time fixes, because you're going to fill it this year, and that hole's going to be there next year and probably bigger. So we tried to create that long-term perspective, and we always got the balance between capital and operating. Again, a urban core community, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of aging infrastructure. You got to maintain it, and sometimes that gets put to the side in trying to balance budgets. So try to really focus on that and create. And I think that's where we were creative in how to keep funding capital while keeping operations balanced. And again, I think you really got to look at what are you doing as a government, and what is absolutely required, what is a nice thing, but maybe not affordable anymore. We've certainly looked at partnering with other community partners to maybe provide a service, contracting. I know all of these have issues with them, because you've got unions, you've got a lot of that to work through. But I think we got to start looking at, and again, I say this for Kalamazoo, where are we going and how we're going to get there, and what things are we going to do well and what are we not going to do anymore, and start working through those decisions, because again, we've got bigger issues out there that we got to start planning for. So, and that's going to be tough. It's going to be messy, and I've worked through that before and helped commissions through that. It's a partnership. I know you'll take all the heat for it, and we'll provide cover for you.
I'm going to follow up that question if I might. Being that this is going to be your first opportunity in the big chair, and innovation was the question. I'm assuming you've been sitting in Battle Creek and have had ideas or thoughts of things that are going to make communities a wonderful place, or something that you wanted to lead. Tell me that. Tell me what's that? What are those things that are?
I'm going to give you all my ideas I have for Battle Creek. I mean, and that's part of it, and I've heard that here. We've done a whole lot of things. There's not a whole lot of options. You have early retirement. We've done that, not in an official system like that, but we've always worked through, a job becomes vacant, we don't fill it, so through attrition. We've had very few layoffs. And I think as going forward, again, in Battle Creek, we've addressed some of those long-term liabilities through bargaining, and at the bargaining table, we've adjusted employee benefits more in line with what the state, and I know Kalamazoo is in line with the state too, but I think there might be some more creative approaches to deal with that, and work with employees on that. And again, you want to balance that with creating a humane organization and not harming people. But, and I said this last night, I think we're all going to share the pain trying to get to where we want to be. So there's other financing options potentially with OPEB liabilities that we want to look at. I'm not saying it's the silver bullet, but there are certainly other ways to start taking and accounting for that liability and potentially securitizing it into a debt service versus this unknown arc that goes on and on and on. So there's ways of working at that. The state's provided that ability to do that. I think Oakland County's looking at doing that bond issue here soon. So there's other ways of looking at it, but you got to start looking at especially with the early retirement initiative, as new employees come on, you change the benefit structure, you've lowered your actuarial costs going forward, and that builds a sustainable future.
I didn't ask my question right, but that's okay. I'll try to figure it out. Commissioner Sanabra.
Thank you, Mayor Hopewell. Mr. Ritzemai, I've got a four-part question, and our HR director advised me it's probably best to just ask each part first, let you answer. And I did the first two candidates, I read them all, but the last candidate, I'm going to just do like I did for the last candidate. Please describe the Michigan model for local government financing.
It's broken. Next question. No, it is. I mean, it is broken because you got Proposal A, you got Headley, those limitations. Kalamazoo has 56% of its property, on the tax exempt roll. Those organizations are enjoying those services but not paying into it. So you've got that structure as decline in values have happened. If those were to come back, which is going to take a while for property values to come back, you're not going to capture all of that because you've got your millage that's been rolled back, and so again, those revenues, which is a primary source of revenue in Kalamazoo, is not going to keep pace with the expenditure side that I just explained.
And the second part of that, what, if anything, would you do to change the existing structure?
At the state level?
I'll let you answer it.
Okay, because I have worked with the state legislative. We have a good legislative contingency in Battle Creek. We're well positioned right now. But, I think there's definitely ways that the state could help. And some of it is local option for various types of assessments, and there's been talk of a sales tax, some sort of regional tax for a particular service. I think is a good idea, and then anything that the state can do to help, with the state shared revenue piece and start sharing that revenue again. Another area that I think they need to deal with is the transportation funding. That is huge right now, and I think that would take some burden off some of those other budgets that are spending money on roads right now for localities. So some of those areas.
What ideas do you have about enhancing city revenue? Your own ideas?
Enhancing. I kind of threw out the income tax last night, and I know that's a hard one to sell. But again, I think if you start building this picture of where we're going as a community, and that I say Kalamazoo, but it also includes the townships and the county itself, Portage. I think if we all come together and understand that, one, we're all in this together, and two, we're going to all get ourselves out of this together. So if Kalamazoo goes, so does those other areas. So I think working together and maybe identifying a particular service and then tying a revenue stream to that would be voted on, such as an income tax. We have an income tax in Battle Creek, and I love it, but it's also you can hurt you too, because it changes. It's a very elastic tax.
And finally, how could the city become more locally self-sufficient?
Succeed from the state, I think would be the first. No, I think we need to work regionally and think regionally, because again, the city, the Kalamazoo, is really reliant on others, and others are reliant on it. So to the extent we can work together, again, more regionally, I think we'll be better off. So I would say, yeah, we'd love to be self-sufficient, but in this reality right now, I think there's just too much. Townships are a hard part of Michigan government because they're set up to, they're cheaper than a city. They enjoy all the. I got to say this: my brother and sister-in-law are live in the township. I'd be careful, but and they enjoy the city services, but without an income tax or something like that, user fees, they're not paying into that. So that is a tough form. So I would say working more regionally.
Thank you.
I just have a one-part question. Tell us your most difficult personnel problem and how you dealt with it.
Okay. I'm not going to use the furloughs as a,
There
because I could use that all the way
You
through.
could use that all the
We could
way
be
through.
done, but no, I've had to discipline employees, and it's not easy. And in some, what I've done is got to do an investigation. You got to gather the facts, sit down with the employee, present them with what you found. In this case, it was a higher level management position, and it was almost dereliction of duty, and led to a suspension. So, working through that though with a long-term employee who had a somewhat, clean past, it was difficult. But again, you've got to look at the whole organization and, hold everyone accountable. So, and provide that fairness across the board. So it was tough, but we got through it.
Thank you.
How have you in your work engaged young people to move an opportunity? How do you view young people in relationship to city success? And what have been intentional actions that you have taken to enhance the opportunities for young people?
I've been actively involved in the past at career days at high schools, both at my kids' school and Lakeview High School. Actually, you've got to sit there and thrill them with city government, which is hard because the next guy is, building this bridge and all that. And you're just showing them a CAFR, but it was tough. So that is, you kind of feel inadequate. But I did reach out to a lot of kids. They had some, table groups that you sit down and talk with kids about what they want to do and those that are interested. And my daughter here is on the Youth Advisory Board in Battle Creek, so that was formed. I I didn't have to convince her to do that. She did that on her own. But you know, I think that's a good testament to, you know, getting that future leadership.
I have a follow-up. And I know we all chuckled at the CAFR comment, and it was interesting, but I would ask you, how do you make a CAFR interesting? What's your creative ways to connect that to young people being...
Build a bridge out of it. Yeah. No, I think we, no, you gotta really present it in a way that they can understand. And what I did is, you know, you use the CAFR, but you start explaining what municipality government, city government does, all the points that it intersects in people's lives, and you know, then all of a sudden you've created a pretty dynamic organization that, you know, it's not just sewer, water, airport, police, fire. I mean, you can go into any one of those areas, or you can be more administrative and, you know, oversee and play in a lot of those areas. So, you know, just creating that dynamic, that excitement of, if you want a job where you don't know what you're going to be doing tomorrow, go into city government.
So, again, another follow-up, being that we are the city of the promise, so you're coming into a different environment regarding young people. What do you see as the opportunities for this city in regards to the promise in our young?
Well, I think it's an awesome program. What I've seen and read about it, it's stabilized things, it's stabilized the schools and population, and just creating that awareness that you can have a future by, you know, post high school education, and getting kids to be aware of that and buy into it early, I think is a great thing. And I would hope that that would continue to be rolled out and keep kids, you know, engaged, wanting to go to college, wanting to get, you know, a good job afterwards. So I think it's an incredible program.
Mr. Anderson.
Okay, so you may have talked about some of these things already, but this is just talking about what you've done in the area of intergovernmental cooperation and also public-private partnerships or collaborations, and examples, what's worked, maybe what didn't work, that kind of thing.
Real quick on the intergovernmental, negotiated sewer contracts with the outside jurisdictions. We actually came to terms of agreement. The agreement's still being worked on, and like Kalamazoo, those have been expired for a while because of that dynamic between townships and the city. But we did work through that. I was at the table doing that, you know, and it was quite a process, but we got through it. Private-public partnership, a great example of that, and go back to the pulver dryer, the waste to energy project. The other dynamic of that is Kellogg, our major employer, was going to put in its own pre-treatment system at the plant, which would have cost our sewer system about $1.2 million a year. It would be a huge hit to the sewer system. We were able to sit down with the company, get them to understand that, and actually take what they were going to invest, and it's actually going to be more than what they were going to invest in their own plant, and invest it in our system. In fact, they're looking at funding the pulver dryer project, and then we would give them credits back on their sewer bill or water portion of it to account for that repayment. And so we took what would have been a huge hit to the sewer system, created it into funding a project that's ultimately going to benefit the entire system. And Kellogg is getting a lot of PR for you know, the green initiative of it and sustainability. So I think that was a true win-win.
I want to follow up a little bit because I know there was an unusual combining of a township in the city.
Yeah, back
Not
in the early 80s.
Yeah. How has that worked in your estimation in terms of your experience?
I think it's worked well. I wasn't around it when it actually happened, or you know, the years after. I came in 2001, so by that time I think everything had kind of melded together. I think early on, because Battle Creek had an income tax and the other township didn't, that was a hard sell. And I think what had to happen was the income tax was dedicated to a special fund for a period of time so the folks in the township knew that what they were paying, what they weren't paying before, is going into this fund for for specific uses. So, but now you don't even, other than Lakeview and Battle Creek, football, that's about it.
Commissioner Kuhn?
Okay, the city has a poverty rate of over 40% for its children and over 60% for its African American children. What ideas do you have for combating poverty among our families?
Well, I understand there's already an initiative out there. I forget the name of it. I met the person last
Poverty
week.
reduction.
Okay, that's easy. There was another name for it, but I couldn't remember it. But anyways, I would be at the table and have the city involved in that, because again, where there are issues being worked on, I think the city needs to be involved and visible out there. Whether we're primarily responsible for that area, I don't think is really the question. It's what impact does that have on the community? And again, we're trying to improve community, so I would certainly want to meet whatever's being done out there and support that.
Commissioner Moore?
Climate change is a reality, and it has serious implications for our city. What ideas do you have about reducing the city's carbon dioxide emissions?
So was that the first, what she said at first, like she cut out there?
Climate change.
Oh, climate change.
Climate
Climate
change is a
change.
reality and serious implications for our city.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that, I think a lot of those green, looking at the carbon footprint, we've done a lot of that work in Battle Creek. One as how the city contributes to that problem, through our own emissions, whether it be, we have an incinerator, both and a boiler at City Hall, our fleet, looking at some clean, fuel alternatives there. I think that's important. One, that the city is addressing its own carbon footprint, and then making that a model for other organizations, companies out there to follow.
Thank you.
That was question 14. I promised you there were 15, but I have a couple more follow-ups.
Sure.
You've talked a little bit yesterday and today about economic development and your involvement. I guess I'm wanting to know, in whatever words you want to provide, what is economic development to you?
Okay. Well, economic development is the engine that drives this community. And what I like to think is the city isn't really in economic, we support it. We're not the providers of economic development. So we're creating kind of the soil for economic development to occur, to grow. So to me, economic development is you bring in viable companies and hopefully tax on the tax rolls to generate taxes, but whether that be the case to employ people, and then the other side of that is getting people employable. And we're having that issue right now in Battle Creek. People being able to pass a drug test to get a job. So you got all those social dynamics playing into what jobs we're creating. So I think you got to look at economic development in totality. Again, it's basically a job, giving someone a job, giving them a way to provide for their family, their livelihood, and then kind of lifting up the whole community, and then providing tax base for the city, and those people that have those jobs spend that money. And so, yeah, again, the engine for the community, driving that.
This afternoon or today, you had the opportunity to go on your own self-guided exploration of the city. Where'd you go? Who'd you see? Why did you go there? What did you learn?
Well, I can say I actually been on my own self-guided tour of the city for the last month. So, I've tried to go into all parts of the city. I mentioned before, I met, with Maddie up in North Side neighborhood, our Community Development Association, areas that I see need a lot of work, and I admit I get lost occasionally because the streets around here are just crazy to figure out. But and today I enjoyed Bronson Park, the lunchtime event going on there, and all the people there, the Western cheerleaders, and what a great time there. So again, a great community, a lot going on, and then, you know, just the whole downtown piece is phenomenal, so.
And my final question, and we'll let you tell us anything else you would like to. I'm going to go back to the question that I didn't phrase correctly.
Okay.
I used it at the wrong time. You've been the assistant city manager at Battle Creek for how long?
Going on 5 years.
So now you may have the opportunity to be city manager of Kalamazoo.
Mm-hmm.
You've sat in that assistant's chair for a while. You must have had ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Things that are dear to your heart. That
Right.
If I get to be a city manager somewhere, I could do this, or I could do
Right.
that. What are those ideas? Give me a couple. I'm trying to understand.
Oh, sure.
What your thinking is about
Right.
the opportunity.
And, you know, the ideas I have are probably more style related, how I would work as a manager. Because, you know, again, and I have observed many managers over my career. And there is a cycle to a city manager. You get pushed and pulled, like I mentioned before. Your time is so demanding. All of a sudden, you start getting complaints that you're not in the organization. You're not, you know, visiting the lower level employees. And then you start doing that, and then you're not in the community. So you've got that dynamic. So, you know, one of my ideas is, you know, 60-40 rule. You know, whether it be 60% in the organization, 40%. You know, working some methodology into how my time is going to be allocated for the community and for this organization, because I think both are critical to keep moving us forward. So, you know, that's more personal. You know, I have a lot of ways, I think, of supporting employees. You have an excellent cabinet here, leadership team, and met with them the other day, and, you know, getting those ideas out, and then, you know, speaking what I know into those with my breadth of knowledge and ability to work at the state level, and, you know, kind of drive some of those ideas, hopefully, to fruition to help address some of the issues that I talked about. So, you know, I don't have any grandiose plan of, you know, I'm not a power-hungry person. I just want to do a good job and be real to both you and the organization, and, you know, get us all to where we want to go, that vision.
The floor is yours.
Well, thank you. This has been a very incredible process, and but a good one. I think I've learned a lot about myself and a lot about your organization, your community. I would love to be a part of your organization, your community, and you know, I think as I look back to yesterday, I may have focused a little more on the technical side and a little less on the dynamic side. And, you know, tonight I hope you know, I was able to show a little bit different side of me. And I think, you know, what you see is what you get. And you know, I'm able to work in a lot of different arenas. And I think as a city manager, that's what you're called to do. And you know, I'm ready to hit the ground running, like I said last night. And, you know, there's a lot of tough issues coming up, financial and poverty. And, you know, I'm going to be visible. I'm going to be at the table. I'm going to be working, you know, until I won't be satisfied until, you know, we've gotten through this and we're all saying, yeah, we reached the vision of what we want. And, you know, I looked at your vision, and that's mine too. So, you know, I hope to be your next city manager.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We appreciate you taking the time and spending with us.
Sure. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you for coming.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Sorry about the loss in your family.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.